Hi my fellow knitters, it's Debbie here. A short video here just to take a closer look at the buttons on the Vilma top. A vintage style buttons in various colours, but they're quite muted. And I think this gives it something a bit special actually. But as promised, I thought I'd just run through my process of putting them on to see if that's helpful to you, or perhaps you can suggest a better one to me. So what I do is sort of get my buttons ready and consider the thread I'm going to use. Now for this one I used, in a taupe colour, I used a fingering weight yarn that I've got. Quite thin, and I knew it would go through. I tested it through my needle. And then I placed the first one in the correct position, aligning it with the buttonhole on the opposite side. And I did count in as well before I started sewing. You can see me sewing here, but before I did, I counted in. It was basically 4 rows in to where the middle of the button would go. So I had some pins holding it there. And then holding it with my hands, I start to secure the first portion. So for instance, there's 4 holes in these buttons. So I would do 2 of them, go through one hand side, and then see how that was going, just making sure it was lined up. Yeah, that was 4 in, so carried on sewing through. I like the colour of this one as well. And then I did the button up and just made sure it was all aligned, and it was. That's when I go to the second buttonhole, put a pin through, put one of my sewing pins through, and make sure I've got the centre spot for it. And then get the button aligned with it, count 4 rows in as I did previously to the first button, and get that lined up into the middle of it with the pin there. Get a second pin, just hold that in place. And look by eye, make sure it's lining up. I was pretty confident that it did. That's when I'm going to take those pins out and go in with my needle and thread. As you can see, I'm always double checking, just making sure I haven't come out of alignment a little bit. Because I've had many occasions when I have actually had to just take whole buttons off and redo them. So I've gone in from the front just to hold it in position. I'm going to then pull that all the way through. There you are, all the way through, so it's at the back, and then pull it through with my fingers. And now I do know I'm in the right position, and I've got my spare thread there for when I want to sew into the back and secure the button. But for now, I'm going to just sew through 2 of the holes. There we go, and keep that in the right position. And I just take my time with this. I don't rush through it. Just pull the thread through. Just pull that back, make sure you've got enough there to sort of sew off and tie off at the end. And now I do know I've got myself in the right position. I can carry on through the other 2 holes. Get that secured. And let's just check again. I'm always double checking. Before you go too far, you just make sure it really is in the right place, in case you've got to start again. But luckily, I did quite well on this one. That looks lovely, doesn't it? All nice and lined up. So we'll take that back through. And now I really can secure it, so I will go several times through both of the holes. Both sets of holes, I mean, apologies. I'll go through them several times, at least 3 or 4. You have to kind of get experience with this to see when would be the right time. Now, if you had a bigger, heavier button, you might have to go through quite a few times. These were, although wooden, they're quite light, to be honest with you. And so 3 or 4 times, I think, is what I did here, and that held the button nicely. As you can see, I'm doing the sort of 2 holes on the right hand side and then the 2 holes on the left hand side. Getting it looking lovely. And this is where you can really practice your sewing skills if you're not a sewer. I've done quite a bit of embroidery actually and cross stitching, so I'm quite confident with a needle and thread. But if you're not, don't worry about it, it's quite simple. You just need to try not to get into a knot and pull your thread right through so that it's nice and neat on the buttonhole. But as you can see here, I am now passing the thread quite a few times through the back of all those stitches that I've made. And then I'm going to go and pick up the very first piece of thread that went through and do the same thing. Re-thread it, pass it through a few times. Just getting it secured. In fact, I only went 1 time there. That was all right. Must have felt quite secure. And then I'm going to do a knot right over left and then left over right. That gives you quite a secure knot, and then trim those down. And then, of course, you're on to your 3rd button. And so the process is the same. I do these 2 up and then I would carry on. Now, when I've done all my buttons, I like to use a bit of fray stop. It's a sew-in product. It's a glue that dries clear and dries flexible. And although this isn't necessarily needed, I just feel a bit more confident if I put a little piece of it, or a little splodge of it as it were, in that centre of the knot, and then I let them dry. And that way I feel very confident that these buttons are going to stay on and last for quite some time. Because, you know, they are, every time you wear the garment, you're going to be buttoning up, buttoning off, possibly. You might just slip it over your head. But yeah, buttons can get a lot of use, so I do like to secure it with a little bit of fray stop. It doesn't dry hard, it dries flexible, and that's what I really, really like about it. So yeah, that's it guys. I let that all dry, and then my buttons are done, as you saw in that opening clip. So I do hope that was of a little bit of help to you. Let me know if you've got any great methods for buttons and getting those buttons in the right place and putting them on. But for now, I'm going to wish you all happy knitting, and I'll see you next time.